Welcome to the Business Insight on MyNewsroom.ca. Joining me today is Eitan Sharir. He's with Dynamic Achievement in Vancouver, and he's an expert in the area of corporate culture and more specifically leadership and how leaders can set the tone for corporate culture because, as you know, the tone is set at the top, and we see it whether that's in business, in your local church, in government, in a not-for-profit, doesn't really matter. Leaders kind of set the tone for where we're going. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about today, Eitan, is that you've got this notion, and it really sort of piqued my interest when you said, for business leaders, don't compete with your competitor because that's too limiting. You said compete with your own potential. It's a fascinating thought, and I want you to explain that a little bit.
Sure. Thank you, Paul. I think to start off with, don't compete with your competitors needs a shift in mindset, which means we don't actually have competitors. We have other organizations playing in the same industry that we are in, but we are not going to view them or label them as competitors, other than other companies or other people that we can learn from. But we are going to shift our whole focus, instead of trying to be better than, to be the number one or to be the best, which is always in comparison to another, which limits our creativity and our innovation. We're going to shift our whole focus on what is possible. And when we focus on what is possible, the view is very different to the one where we are just looking at what the others are doing and how to just beat them or be better than them. And I find that to be a far more exciting game, and probably one that is needed today more so than at any time with COVID and many uncertainties that we have been experiencing.
Isn't it interesting, though, that you see so many vision statements and missions and all of that where our company strives to be the best in our class or whatever, and you're saying that's just a limiting belief system.
Yes, I think it is a limiting belief system. You know, even the concept of best in class. Who's the class here? Who are you relating it to? If we study, and I'm sure that the people who are listening to this and watching this read a lot of books like I do, business and visionaries and autobiographies. And when we really study visionaries, what we see that is consistent amongst all of them is that they never look at how to be better than. Okay, can you ever imagine Steve Jobs trying to be better than Microsoft? He's, of course, maybe on one hand, he did want to be better than them, but I have no doubt that he was not competing with them because his view was, what has not been created before? Let me conceive of this idea, and then let's see if we can give it life, give it birth. Think about Elon Musk, you know, the new Steve Jobs of today, maybe even beyond Steve Jobs. I mean, look at all the things that he's involved in. I mean, and initially everyone says, this guy's crazy. He may be crazy. He actually went to the same school as mine in South Africa, funnily enough. But, you know, he may be crazy. But the crazy is he just thinks very differently. He's able to see things that I think most of us are not able to see. And if you think about Walt Disney, another visionary, maverick, and a great creator, he had a 3-step process that he called the process of creation. And his first step, or what he called was the first state of mind that he went into, was what he called the dreamer. I'm going to just dream. I'm not just going to try and put logic or practicality or measurements into it or process. I'm just going to go into this dreamer state where everything is possible, even the most ridiculous things that we can imagine. And that's what he did. He spent quite a bit of time in the dreamer state, and then he documented it. After that, he went into the second state of mind, which he called the realist. Okay, now how can we make this pipe dream, airy-fairy, impossible dream come true? How can we practicalize it? How can we ground it? And for I don't know, weeks or months or whatever, he got his team together and they starting to conceive of how to execute their dream into practical reality. And then when they did that and they had a wonderful plan, he then went into the third state that he called the critic. Okay, what can go wrong? What did we not think of What did we over imagine, or what did we predict that we think is not possible, that is possible? What can go wrong? Basically, devil's advocate. And they went and plugged all the gaps and all the holes that they thought that they needed to in the action plan, and the rest is history. So I think, Paul, that the most important thing is, with regards to creation and potential, is to stay in the dreamer state before rushing into the realist or the critic, where we kill all ideas and visions.
If we don't, we run the risk of, I mean, first of all, the leader becomes kind of, if I can say, the cap. So as much as the leader can imagine is what can happen. But if you choose to compete with the competitor, then you're letting the competing organization's leader be your cap, if I can put it that way.
Very much so. Not only your cap, but they are also your biggest. They make you average. They make you mediocre. Because even if you are better than them, who says that them or they is great? You know, when we think about Jim Collins, you know, good to great, I'm sure everyone's read it. Yeah. I'm not into good to great. I'm from great to excellent. And when I define excellence, you know, a very simple definition that I find very practical, it's doing the best that we can with whatever resources we have available to us right now. Always exploring new possibilities and new potential, being aware of what the others in our space are doing, but only so that we can learn from them to further whatever it is that we are creating. And when we understand the whole concept of creating, when I keep on saying creating and innovating, it's when we as leaders are able to get our teams to come together to co-create something that has never been created before. Not just coming together to collaborate and some teamwork. No, no, no. We come to work to co-create. And if you think about the concept of co-creation, you're creating something that is not already there. You're using what's already there as just a foundation, and you're always exploring at the leading edge. I mean, just imagine the exciting game compared to the games that most leaders and most organizations play. Catch up.
You find that most leaders today in today's world, and especially those in the public sector, publicly traded companies, where so much pressure for quarterly reports and all of that kind of stuff, that they just don't give themselves the space to think.
Yes, I think they do think, but once again, it's what they're focusing their thinking on. And what I see a lot is that their main objective is to please the shareholders. The main objective is to make sure that the next quarterly results are looking good, so that, of course, share prices go up if they're a publicly traded company. And I think that's, on the one hand, I understand the necessity of it. On the other hand, I think it's a huge limitation to organizations, because what happens now is that those leaders are too scared to innovate. They're too scared to commit to something bigger than what they currently have, other than small little growth, you know, of 3%, 4%, 5%, whatever, even 10%. And that's never in line with potential. Potential is infinite. You know, if you just had to look at your market share in relation to the potential, I mean, it's minuscule. And that I find is so exciting and so inspiring, just to imagine that whatever we have right now, as good and as great as it may be, is nothing compared to the potential that we have to create something that is way bigger, way better, and ideally one that contributes to the greater good of the whole, not only ourselves.
Eitan Sharir with Dynamic Achievement in Vancouver. Thank you for joining us. You've been listening to the 10-Minute Business Insight on MyNewsroom.ca.